Hey everybody, BassMountain here. We're gonna do another cook up. It's been a hot minute, so let's get at it. So, what to make today? Probably something pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I haven't fixed the guitar yet, so I'll probably just make something, mess around with the bass. Um, Maybe not even a full song idea today. We'll see what it turns into. But let's just do like a simple 6 to 4 type of progression and see how it fills itself out. I'm going to use the Labs plugin by Spitfire Audio, uh, the soft piano. It's just such a beautiful kind of sad piano. I don't want to make something too sad today, but maybe it'll turn into something kind of chill. We'll see. And then as far as what it's going through, I've got it going through the Echo Boy by Sound Toys, one of my favorite delays. Just the warm, crispy tape preset. The only thing I changed was I bumped up the low cut so I don't get a whole bunch of mud going in there. And then I have a send that I'll be sending a lot of stuff through before I start to mix. It's the Vintage Verb rich chamber preset with the 70s color on it because it's a little bit warmer than the present preset. Something like that. A little 6/4 through a 5 in the middle here and there. So I'm going to go in, clean that up, get rid of some of those miss notes. Oops. Quantize it just a little bit. I want it to feel like it's being played by a person, not necessarily by a computer. Oops. So if you want to quantize something but not get it completely on the grid, highlight everything, Control A, and then Control Shift U brings up your quantize settings. So after you get your quantize menu, you can choose how you want it quantized. And for this situation, I want it quantized to the 8th note. And you can actually choose if you want to adjust the beginning and the end. So let's say you're trying to do a bunch of like really quick stabs and you only want those stabs to be 8th notes and no longer than that, then you can quantize the start and the end to snip all of those notes that you played down to exactly an 8th note. I don't want that. So we're just going to adjust the start. And this amount down here, this percentage, is what's going to decide how quantized it is. If it's 100%, it'll stick it perfectly on every 8th note on your grid. We don't want to do that today, so I'm going to drop it. Let's try something like 34%. I don't know, just a random number to kind of see how much it can clean it up. Okay, that'll do. I don't have a sustain pedal. If I did, we would need to do this next step. But I want all my notes to kind of run together a little bit, make those transitions a lot smoother, especially when I include the 5 right here. I only have so many fingers, and I'm not a virtuosic piano player at the moment. So I'm going to just artificially extend that one so it kind of bleeds into the next chord just a smidge. I'm also going to just kind of get everything in each chord to kind of overlap just a little bit, especially the higher notes. The more that the lower notes overlap, you have more of a opportunity for there to be some conflicting low frequencies that just won't sound great. So for the lower frequencies, I'll probably just extend them to the end of the bar But the higher ones, see, the way I played it, I already had some of the higher ones, higher frequencies extending over a little bit. The delay and reverb are going to help with this effect, but I just don't want any harsh cuts from the notes. Okay, that'll do cleaning up this track. I'll probably come back and edit some of the notes later on to make it a bit more interesting, give it some flavor. So we have kind of a section where it's just strictly 6/4, and then the next section we add a 5 while we're descending from the 6 to the 4. If you don't know what the numbers mean, I'll try to explain that real quick. There is definitely a very long explanation that will make a bit more sense. But if you ever hear a musician referring to a note or a chord by a number, what they're saying is in whatever key that you're working in this example right now, we're in the key of C major because I was playing all white keys, no sharps or no flats. The numbers are referring to a note within that key, more specifically, the interval within that key. An interval is a name for a note within a scale or a key where each interval represents a very specific distance that note is from the root. So, for example, in the key of C major, there's no sharps or flats, and the first note is C, of course, and we call that the root. The root is the name that we give the kind of first note of the scale, the fundamental note that you're working with in the key. It's also referred to as a tonic. So if C is our root, D is the second note in the C major scale, and we can call that the second interval. The interval represents, like I said before, the distance that that note is from the root. So a second interval is always a whole step above the root. The third interval is E. That's the third note in the key of C major. And the third interval represents a note that is always 2 whole steps above your root. And then you can go about modifying those intervals to help fit whatever chord you're using or whatever progression you're using. So if I was talking in terms of just the note interval building a scale, if we went from C and we used root third fifth, that's going to be C, E, G, the first note of the scale, the third note of the scale, and the fifth note of the scale. And those are all natural intervals, root, third, and fifth. We didn't change anything in them, and so it gives us a major triad. If you were to say play the root, the flat third, and the fifth, then we would be playing C, the first note, our root, E flat, because we added a flat to the third interval. So now we take our E and we drop it down a half step, and then we add 5. And that gives you a minor triad. You can do this to understand any chord you're working with. And then, like I said, you can use it in terms of chord progression. So quickly, I was saying we're going to go from the 6 to the 4 in the key of C major. So the 6th note of C major is A. It goes a little bit deeper than I wanted to originally kind of dive into. But if you go into any note, any interval within a scale, it can have a chord applied to it where every note in that chord is in the same key that you're working in. And that's called diatonic. That just means every note in every chord is in the same key. So if you were to try to figure out which root, third, and fifth would fit starting from A in the key of C major, then you would get a root, a flat third, and a fifth, making it a minor triad. And that's how we know automatically if somebody says play the 6th chord, we know that they're referring to a minor chord. So in this example, I'm just going from A minor, our 6th chord, to F major, which is our 4 chord. And I found those intervals the exact same way. Which root, third, and fifth, starting from F, fits in the key of C major. And that gives us F, A, and C. I then added some more intervals into the chord using the same method to get a 7th. So I'm going from A minor 7 to F major 7. And then later in the progression, like I said, I was adding a 5 that just means I'm adding the 5 chord using the same criteria, root third fifth, that fits in the key of C, starting from the 5th note of C major, which is G. And that gives us a G major triad. If we added the 7th and we wanted it to still fit in the key, that 7 has to be F, which is considered a flat 7, and that makes it G dominant. I didn't want to have a dominant chord though, so I'm just using a simple triad for the 5 chord. So let's keep making this song. Let's add a little bit more texture behind it by using a pad. See how this sounds? The Ambient pad by Element. I don't know if I love it yet, but if it's ducked down enough, maybe I'll like it. That'll do. We're just going to copy and paste it. And if you can tell, I'm only doing 3-note chords, and I'm actually only doing root 5th and 7th. If you've watched any of the past Cookup videos, I've talked about how when you're doing a pad on a song, you probably want to try to leave out some of the voicings. You don't want to make that chord as thick as something on a, say, piano or guitar, just because your pad is going to be filling the space, right? And if you fill too much of that space, like I always say, you're going to have some conflicting frequencies in there. It's going to make it harder to mix because you're going to have the whole spectrum just spouting out sound the whole time. So I only did 3-note chords in here, 3 voiced chords, using the root 5th and 7th. And I think I like the way it's going to turn out. I might affect this pad a little bit though. Okay, I just made a simple percussive line, just kick, snare, and a tambourine. Did a little reverse tambourine every once in a while. So now I don't have too much more I want to do. I really, like I said at the beginning of this thing, I just wanted to make a track so I could mess around on the bass. So that's what I'm going to do. I've got one of my bass chain presets loaded up, but I'm actually going to be going through a DI with a preamp built in. So I'm going to turn off the guitar rig and the OTT. I'll leave the limiter on, probably turn off the gate too. So let's see what this sounds like. Okay, got the single cut plugged in. Have a little bit of echo boy, a little bit of reverb. And I think I'm just going to do a little bit of a melody line or counter melody, I guess, going on top of this. Probably some just little octaves. Something like that. We'll see. Yeah. I think I like this last one the most. So I think I'll just take it and put it everywhere. All right, so I've got some stuff. Now let's arrange this a little bit and see what kind of extra sprinkles on top I can throw in here. Okay, well I added some sound effects, a little bit of more texture, and mix it down a little bit. So here's a bit of a lo-fi track from today.